Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon and greetings from London, where it's unusually hot. I'm going to be giving you a speech about something that I discovered recently, thanks to a good friend of mine. And I'll start by talking about the fact that human beings really like being part of a community in all senses of the word. I don't only mean community as a location, but community as, for example, belonging to a gym, having some sort of membership, or buying a certain brand all the time. You feel like you're part of that community. And I'm saying that because this is what a friend once said to me. Or belonging to groups online, or a faith, or, and this is the topic of my speech, a book club, which is the best community to be part of. But there are many problems with book clubs. In fact, I find them really frustrating, despite the fact that I love books and reading. The reason why is because with a book club, there's always a prescribed reading list, right? On 1 month you read this, another month you read that. It's usually by month. And the problem with this is that you might have already read the book that month. Like you might have read it a few years ago. So that kind of doesn't really make you feel, it doesn't really motivate you to carry on reading, and you might have a reading slump or things like that. And then the other problem with giving people a reading list is that you might not like the book. Maybe you haven't read it, but for good reason, because you tried it and then you gave up, right? Which is kind of my case. If ever, I join a Spanish book club and it's, 100 Years of Solitude, I'm like, no, I'm out. I tried it. I read it. I stopped. I listened to it on audio. I stopped. Okay, like I've tried. You can't say that I haven't tried, right? So, and then the second problem is that there are deadlines, right? You have to read a book by a certain date. And this is problematic because, well, you might be busy, and you feel like you're going to be lagging behind, and everybody else has got all this time to dedicate to their hobby and you can't because you're working or doing something else. So it's really frustrating. And then what if they give you like a gigantic book like War and Peace, and you have a month to read that? I mean, it's just unrealistic. So there's the pressure to finish. Also, there's a pressure to sound smart. Like when you finish the book, not only do you have to finish, a novel, which is a fantastic thing, unless if you don't like the book, but also you have to contribute something, because when you go to the book club, you discuss the book, the themes, the characters, did you like the ending? Were you frustrated? Would you have changed it? Things like that. So there really is this pressure to kind of keep up the pace, and also the level of so-called intelligence. Now, that there are certain book clubs that I've seen that I think work quite well, that sort of bypass these problems. One of them is the Alliance Francaise in Manchester. They publish a whole list for the year, or maybe for 6 months or something like that, of books that you can read. And this, I think, is a good system, because you can look at the list and say, right, I've already read this one, and this one, so I won't bother going to those. Or maybe you really want to, because you want to discuss with other people. So I'm really sorry, I forgot to time myself. Okay, here we go. And so I've lost my trail of thought now. Yeah, so you can plan accordingly, right? You can look at the list and say, okay, I want to go to those because I want to talk about that book because I loved it, or I'm not going to go to that one, or I've always wanted to read this, so I'm going to go to that one, right? So that's a really good idea. But there is a problem with that, though, which is that if you have, a list like 6 months in advance, it's not really topical anymore. I think an interesting thing of book clubs is that you're reading something, maybe something that has just been released, or something that is relevant to what's going on in the current climate. So I think that's one of the shortcomings for that. And then the other problem is bestsellers, right? Because in book clubs, they often choose bestsellers because, they're good. Bestsellers are good because they encourage people to read, right? But it's hardly good if we're all reading the same thing, if we're always reading the same book. it's not, you know, where is the diversity? Death to diversity, you know? So, you know, beware the dangers of a single story. For more information, I invite you to watch or read Chimamanda's speech, The Dangers of a Single Story. It's available on YouTube. It's amazing. It will make you think twice about everything that you read. But read everything and anything. What people tell you to read, and then go and find other things. That's my point here. Anyway, book clubs tend to focus on bestsellers, so that attracts people to the book club. So more and more people come to the book club, and you know, they kind of flock like sheep. And I don't think this is a great thing, unless if you have a very niche book club. Anyway, I've actually tried 3 book clubs myself. I ran a book club once. I was working as a senior bookseller in Waterstones, in the biggest Waterstones in the northwest of England. And I set up a Spanish and Latin American book club because I wanted to read more in Spanish. And there's quite a big Spanish speaking community in Manchester. So I thought it'd be really interesting. And it was good. But the problem is that we were limited by the Spanish books that we could actually get. So we were limited to the Spanish books that were in the warehouse. So once again, it's mostly bestsellers or classics. Sometimes they were very obscure titles, and I thought, okay, well, there are, you know, 10 of these available in the warehouse. I'll order it in and we can read that for the month. But that's not exactly my idea of, you know, how to choose books for book club. The book club is still ongoing, by the way. Well, obviously not now, but I left Manchester and I passed the reins on to somebody else who was running it. And then, because I was lacking a book club, I decided to set one up with my friends. And the way it worked is that each month, one of us chose a book that we would all read. And whilst I think this is a good idea because it makes us, you know, burst out from our bubble of always reading the same thing, and you know, it introduces us to different genres, things we wouldn't necessarily go for. I became frustrated because I was constantly waiting for my turn. I was desperate to recommend, you know, a book, and also to discover a book with my friends. And so then I realized, why don't I just set up my own book club with me, myself, and I? Which sounds like the most selfish thing in the world. But I have a huge list of books to read, and every year I'm like, I'm going to read these books, and it always changes because of, you know, there are new releases or because I discover something. And I think it's nice to change that. I will finish, I promise, because I'm looking at the time. Then I was told about something called the Silent Book Club, which is really great because it's a book club, but where everybody reads their own book, okay? So you all come to this event, to a pub or wherever, and everybody brings their book. So the idea is that you socialize for half an hour, you meet other people who are into books, and you talk about your book and things like that. Then you read for 1 hour, and then after that you socialize again for half an hour. And they call this the introvert's happy hour, which, you know, if you are an introvert, no, not at all, because you don't want to socialize. So not exactly. But the good thing about it is that there's no pressure. There's no time pressure, no pressure to be smart, no pressure to impress with, you know, your analysis of the book or whatever. So yeah, I think it's a great idea. It's very strange now, obviously, with the virus, they've done this online. And it's a bit strange because you meet up on Zoom and then they put you into breakout rooms. So you socialize for half an hour and then you're silent for 1 hour on Zoom, imagine. And then you socialize for another half an hour. I guess the factor is accountability. That's what's important here. You know, you're going to set a time to read. Anyway, to conclude, there are many chapters, they're called chapters, these silent book clubs, that are spread around the world, and you can go on their website, silentbookclub.com, I don't know, and you can see on the map where all the chapters are. And if there isn't a chapter where you are, for example, I don't think there's one in Canada, I think you can set one up, and it would be a great idea because the only thing that you need is a bunch of friends and a book of your choice. Thank you for your attention.